I never thought I'd be that guy sharing his disaster online, but here I am. I always believed in trust, in the kind of love that's supposed to last forever. My wife Lisa and I had what seemed like a rock-solid relationship. We met in college, got engaged after 3 years, and planned a future that felt guaranteed. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were enough for each other. Until I found out I was wrong. It started a few weeks ago when I decided to surprise her with a weekend trip. Nothing fancy, just a little getaway to clear our heads before the wedding. I was packing my bag that Thursday night when I noticed something odd in her nightstand drawer, a receipt from a bar downtown with her handwriting on the back, a little note I didn't recognize. I shrugged it off. Maybe it was a friend. Maybe she'd been out with her sister. Forgive me, I was stupid to just brush it aside. That was until the next day I decided to check her phone, just to make sure she hadn't made any last-minute plans I wasn't part of. That's when I saw the text messages. It was her talking to some guy I'd never heard of, flirtatious, intimate. "Can't wait to see you again," one said. "Last night was perfect." My stomach clenched tight. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I didn't even need to read more. I put her phone down and stepped back, my knees weak. How could she do this, during our engagement no less? I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I wanted to yell, to scream, but I was frozen. The room suddenly felt too small, too hot. My fists clenched, palms sweaty. I kept asking myself, how long has this been going on? Were there signs I missed? Was I just blind? That's when I remembered the night she was late coming home from her friend's house. I'd gotten worried but didn't push her. I tried to ignore the little things that didn't add up. But now, staring at those messages, I knew I'd missed them. I'd missed the signs because I wanted to believe she was perfect. Because I loved her so much, I refused to see what was right in front of me. I kept scrolling through her phone, and there was more: pictures, intimate conversations, plans for their next meeting. Then I saw a photo, a blurry shot of her in bed wrapped around some guy. I recognized the silhouette, her brother's best friend, Jake. They'd always been close, but I never suspected anything beyond friendship. Seeing that image, all the air rushed out of me. I remember clutching my chest like I was trying to hold myself together. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen. This wasn't just a fling, not some one-night thing. This had been going on for months. I felt betrayed, sick, furious. How many nights did I sleep next to her? How many times did she lie to me? The worst part, she was cheating with someone I had trusted, someone I'd even considered a good guy. Now I saw him as a snake. That night I sat on the edge of the bed, replaying everything. Her face, her smile, the way she used to look at me with so much love. It all felt like a lie. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. I wanted to confront her, but I knew I had to plan this carefully. I couldn't just blow up and scream. I needed to get evidence, a solid plan. I had to see if there was more, maybe recordings, messages, anything I could use to make her see the damage she'd done. The next morning I woke up early, heart pounding. I knew I had to get revenge, but I also knew I had to be smart about it. I couldn't just burn everything down. I needed her to see exactly what she'd lost: her future with me, the trust she shattered. But first I needed to make sure I had everything I needed: photos, messages, any proof to make her realize her mistake. I was angry, yes, but I also felt betrayed in a way that made me question everything about her, about us. I started planning in my head how to catch her, how to make her feel the way I did now: hollow, betrayed, lost. And I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let this slide. I'd been loyal, patient, trusting. But now I was done playing nice. If she thought she could cheat on me and walk away, she was dead wrong. That night I decided I'd bait her into showing her hand. I was going to set a trap, something that would make her slip up again. My mind was already racing, and I could feel the fire burning inside me. I didn't know exactly what I'd do next, but I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Next part. The plan took shape quickly, almost instinctively. I didn't want to be reckless, but I knew I needed something concrete, something that would hit her where it hurt. I wasn't just going to confront her blindly. I needed her to slip up again, to give me enough evidence to make her understand she'd crossed a line I couldn't forgive. That night, I left my phone on the nightstand and acted like everything was normal. I kissed her good night, feeling the coldness in my chest. She looked at me with that tired, affectionate smile, and I forced myself to return it. Inside, my stomach twisted. I was pretending, but I was already planning the next move. As I lay there in bed, I kept my eyes fixed on her, watching her breathe. And every part of me was boiling. My mind raced with ideas. What if I sent a message from her phone? What if I caught her in the act again? I didn't want to scare her off entirely, but I needed her to know I was onto her. The next evening, I made sure I was out for a night shift at work. When I came home late, I slipped the phone I'd prepared into her purse, a simple message ready to send. It was a coded text, something that wouldn't seem suspicious, just enough to tempt her into revealing herself. The message read, "Had a great time last night, can't wait to see you again." I knew she'd see it, and I knew she'd have to respond or at least make a move. I wanted to see what she'd do. The moment I left, I kept my phone on silent, waiting near the door. It was a waiting game now. Sure enough, around midnight, her phone buzzed. I heard her squeal softly, a little giggle. She looked at the screen and I saw her stiffen. She hesitated for a moment, then quickly grabbed her phone and started typing. I stayed perfectly still in the shadows, watching her. When she finally replied with a simple "can't wait," I knew she'd started to slip up again. I stayed quiet, but my mind was racing. I'd caught her. Now I just needed her to make the next move. I wanted her to think she was in control, to believe she was getting away with it. Maybe she'd call him, or maybe she'd try to cover her tracks. Either way, I was ready. I made sure I'd hidden a recording device in the living room, close enough to pick up any conversation that might follow. The next day, I acted as if nothing had happened, but I kept the phone closed, listening, waiting. I saw her exchanging texts more frequently now, more casual, almost flirtatious. I knew she was planning something. I could feel it in my bones. The betrayal was thick in the air. That evening, she seemed a little nervous. She kept looking at her phone, biting her lip. I asked her casually, "Who are you texting so much lately?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Just a few friends, nothing special." I nodded, my stomach clenched tight. I did. Trust her? Not anymore. I was going to use her own actions against her. I wanted her to see she was cornered, that I wasn't going to be the fool she thought I was. The moment came when she slipped up. I was sitting on the couch, pretending to watch TV, but I kept the app on my phone recording. She took her phone to the bedroom and I followed at a distance. I heard her whispering, then the muffled voice of Jake. They were talking about meeting up again, about keeping it quiet this time, as she said. That was it. I had everything I needed. The evidence was laid out plainly, her own words, her own secret plans. I felt like I'd been punched again, but also victorious. I knew what I had to do next, but I wasn't just going to confront her with a simple, "I know everything." No, I wanted to turn the tables completely. I wanted her to realize she'd lost control of this game. I'd planned my revenge carefully. The next step would be to make sure she understood what her betrayal meant for us. I stayed up late that night, poring over the evidence, organizing everything. I knew I wouldn't let her sweep this under the rug. I'd give her one chance to come clean, or I'd enact my plan, a way to make her see how badly she'd hurt me and how much she was going to regret it. Tomorrow, I'd set everything in motion. Next part. The morning was heavy with anticipation. I woke up feeling like I was walking a tightrope, nerves and anger coiled tight in my stomach. I knew confronting her outright would do more harm than good right now. Instead, I decided to lay the groundwork to make her realize I wasn't blind or weak. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal pressing on her, to make her squirm just enough to crack. I made breakfast, pretending everything was normal, her favorite eggs and bacon. She came into the kitchen, eyes red-rimmed, still half asleep. I kept my expression neutral, like I hadn't seen the texts or heard her whispering in the night. "Morning," I said, acting casual. "Sleep okay?" She forced a small smile. "Yeah, fine, just tired." I nodded, then took a slow sip of coffee. "Lisa, we need to talk about us, about what's been going on." She looked caught off guard, fidgeting with her fork. "What do you mean?" I set my cup down, steeling myself. "You know exactly what I mean. I've seen the messages, the pictures, the plans, and I want to hear it from your mouth, what's been happening." Her face flickered with panic, then vulnerability. She tried to deny it, but I kept my eyes locked on her. "Don't lie to me. I've got everything I need to see what's been going on." Her shoulders sagged. It's not what you think, it just happened. I didn't mean for it to go this far. Didn't mean for it to go this far, I repeated, voice cold. That's the best you've got. You cheated on me with your brother's best friend and you expect me to believe it just happened. Her eyes welled with tears, but I pressed on. You played me, Lisa, all these years. I should have seen it, but I was blind. You lied, you betrayed me. I trusted you with everything. She looked down, trembling. I was weak. I made a mistake, please. I didn't want to ruin everything. Ruin everything? No, she'd already done that, but I wasn't going to let her slide. I had a plan, a way to make her feel the consequences of her actions. The look in her eyes told me she was starting to realize she'd pushed too far. I leaned in close, voice low. Here, what's going to happen? You're going to pack your things today. You're leaving. And I mean leaving for good. No more excuses, no more lies. I want the keys to the house. You're not staying here anymore. Her face twisted with shock. You're serious? Oh, I'm very serious, I said, voice steady but full of anger. You chose this. You made your bed, Lisa, and now you're going to sleep in it. She hesitated, tears streaming down her cheeks, but I didn't flinch. I knew I had to make her feel that she'd finally crossed the line. I wanted her to understand she couldn't just apologize her way out of this. I wasn't forgiving her. Not now. I pulled out the envelope with the evidence, the photos, the messages, the recordings. I slid it across the table. Here, take a look. This is what I've been gathering. You're not going to deny it anymore. She looked at the pile of proof, her hands trembling. I didn't mean for any of this. That's bullshit, I snapped. You lied to me every day, you betrayed me in the worst way, and I won't stay with someone who cheats, not after everything. Her shoulders slumped further, defeated. Please, can we talk? Just give me a chance to explain. There was no chance left. I'd made up my mind. I could feel the rage and the hurt bubbling over, but I kept my voice calm and cold. No, you had your chance. I trusted you, Lisa. I loved you. And you threw it all away for whatever this was. I grabbed the keys from the counter, ready to leave. You have an hour to pack. If you're not out by then, I'll have someone come and help you pack. And don't bother trying to contact me. I don't want to see or hear from you again. She looked like she was about to break apart completely, but I turned and walked out, leaving her sobbing behind. My palms were sweaty, but I felt a strange sense of relief. It was done. I was finally rid of her betrayal. As I stepped outside into the fresh air, I realized how light I felt, even as my stomach still churned. I had taken control again, and no matter what came next, I knew I'd won this round. She had her goodbye, her final act of betrayal, and I had taken back what dignity I could. But deep down, I wondered how much more this would haunt me, the questions about all the years I missed, all the signs I ignored. Was I just blind? Or was I too trusting? Either way, I knew this wasn't the end. Not for me, not yet. Next part. The house felt emptier than I expected the moment she left. The silence where her voice used to be was almost deafening. I stood in the doorway, watching her load her bags into the car, her shoulders hunched, face streaked with tears. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. The revenge was done, but I couldn't shake the lingering doubt. Was this truly over, or just the beginning of something darker inside me? I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, my mind racing. I kept replaying that morning, her crying, her pleading, the tears she'd shed for something she'd willingly destroyed. I told myself I'd done what I had to, that I'd finally taken control. But the ache in my chest was still there, gnawing at me, whispering that I'd lost part of myself. That night, I sat in the dark, staring at the evidence on my phone. All those messages, the pictures, recordings. I knew I should delete everything, erase the proof of her betrayal. But I couldn't. It felt like some sick trophy. I wanted to remember what she did, to never forget the pain she caused. I also knew I had to face the aftermath, what it meant for me, for my future. I'd built so much trust, invested so much hope into us. And now I wondered if I'd ever be able to trust anyone again. The betrayal cut so deep I questioned everything I'd ever known about love and loyalty. A few days later, I had some friends over, trying to keep myself busy. We sat around, sharing drinks, laughing, pretending I was fine. But inside, I was unraveling. I kept glancing at my phone, expecting a message from her, some desperate apology, some plea to come back. But it never came. Good. One of my friends, Mark, finally broke the silence. Man, you did what you had to. She screwed up. How are you holding up? I shrugged, feeling the weight of it. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm standing in the rubble of a life I thought I knew. All these years I was blind. Or maybe I just didn't want to see what was right in front of me. He nodded. That's the thing about betrayal. It's like a punch to the gut, but you gotta remember you're better off without her. You deserve someone who respects you, not someone who cheats and lies. I looked away, swallowing the lump in my throat. Yeah, I get that, but the worst part, I keep questioning myself. Did I miss the signs? Was I so wrapped up in my own life I ignored what was right in front of me? Mark looked serious. You're human, no one's perfect, but now you have to start rebuilding. Leave her in the past, focus on yourself. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept circling back to the moment I caught her in our bed, how I'd felt, how betrayed I'd been. I wondered if she'd ever regret what she'd done or if she even cared. The thought made my stomach turn. I realized I couldn't go on like this, waiting for some kind of closure that might never come. I needed to take action, something concrete to get closure for myself. Something that would finally help me move forward. The next day I made a plan. I called a lawyer, started sorting through the legal stuff. I wanted to officially end the chapter with her, make it final. I also began to think about therapy, about facing what I felt inside. I needed to process all this. I'd been betrayed, yes, but I'd also been hurt, confused, and angry at myself for trusting too much. I knew I had to cut ties completely. No contact, no lingering hope. Just a hard, clean break. I started by changing my phone number, deleting her from social media, and packing away the pictures of us that still littered the apartment. Every step felt like tearing off a piece of myself I once held dear. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at the empty spot where she used to sleep. My chest would tighten and I'd wonder if I'd ever feel whole again. But I reminded myself, this pain, this betrayal, it's what it takes to grow. I had to let go so I could rebuild. I also found myself replaying how I'd get through this, how I'd come out stronger. I'd turn this into a lesson. Trust is fragile, and when it's broken, you can't fix it with words or promises. You can only rebuild from the ground up, stronger and wiser. So I took the final step. I drove to her apartment, handed her the keys, and told her to never come back. That was the last act, the final goodbye. No more waiting, no more humping. I was severing the ties for good. As I walked away from her place that day, a strange calm settled over me. It wasn't happiness exactly. It was relief. I finally did what I needed to do. The pain was still there, but I knew I was reclaiming control. From now on, I'd focus on healing, on figuring out what I truly want. This betrayal had shattered my trust, but maybe, just maybe, it will teach me to be more careful, to value myself more. Because if I don't, I'll just keep ending up in the same place. Next part. Weeks passed and I sank into a new rhythm, one filled with quiet reflection and painful honesty. I couldn't avoid thinking about everything I'd lost, everything I'd questioned about myself and her. I kept replaying the moments I caught her, the lies I uncovered, and the way my stomach had dropped every time I realized what she'd done. But amid all that pain, I also started to see a flicker of something else, hope. Not the naive kind, but a hard-earned hope that I could rebuild. I'd started going to therapy just for myself. Sitting across from a stranger, talking about the betrayal, trying to untangle the knot of anger and confusion inside me. I didn't expect much at first. Honestly, I thought I might just vent and leave it behind. But my therapist, a calm woman with sharp eyes, kept pushing me to look inward to figure out what I really wanted moving forward. Have you thought about what kind of future you want now? She asked one day, her voice steady. Not just with her, but for yourself. I hesitated. Honestly, I don't even know anymore. I used to be so sure. Now I feel like I'm starting from scratch. I don't trust myself to pick right or even know what I want. She nodded. That's normal. Betrayal shakes you. But part of healing is understanding that your future is still yours, no matter what's happened. You get to decide what comes next. Those words stuck with me. I realized I'd spent so long being the trusting partner, the one who believed in forever, that I'd forgotten I could choose differently now. I could learn from this, be more cautious, more aware. But I could also take control of my own happiness again. I started focusing on my career, throwing myself into work. It helped distract me from the constant replay of her face, her betrayal. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected, those who genuinely cared. Slowly, I began to rebuild a sense of normalcy. One evening, I met up with Mark again. We sat outside a cafe, the city humming around us. I told him about the therapy, about how I was trying to piece myself back together. "You're stronger than you think," he said, clinking his coffee mug against mine. "You've been through hell, but you're still standing. That's what counts." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and resolve. I just, I wonder if I'll ever trust again, or if I'm doomed to be guarded forever. He looked at me thoughtfully. Trust is a gamble. But I do know this. Being cautious doesn't mean shutting everyone out. It means protecting yourself while still leaving room for real connections. You're not going to forget what she did, but you can learn to be smarter about who you let in. That night, I decided I wouldn't rush into anything new. I'd let myself feel the pain, the anger, and the loss, but I'd also start to look forward. After all, life's too short to be stuck in the past. I had to believe I could find happiness again, maybe not with her, not in the way I thought, but somewhere out there. Somewhere I could trust and be trusted in return. Still, I knew I'd carry the scars of her betrayal for a long time. That's why I made one more conscious choice. I buried all the evidence of her in a box in the back of my closet. Photos, messages, some tokens of what I thought we had. I told myself it was to remind me not to forget, but I knew it was also to remind me of the lesson. Love isn't enough if honesty isn't part of the deal. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair in the way it was. My final act was shutting that chapter completely. I went to the bank, closed her joint account, and transferred the last of the shared funds into my name alone. Then I drafted a simple letter saying I was ending everything and wanted no contact. I handed it to the lawyer and sent her the keys to the house with a note. "Goodbye. I hope you find what you're looking for." As I watched the process unfold, I felt a strange sense of relief. This was the end of my old life, and the beginning of something new. I'd been hurt, betrayed, humiliated, but I was still standing, stronger, wiser, and more cautious than I'd ever been before. In the end, I learned that trust is fragile, but it can be rebuilt if you're willing to do the work. That betrayal doesn't define you, your response does. And I chose to take control, to walk away from the pain and toward whatever future I could find. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone in my shoes, it's this: trust yourself first, because no one else is going to do it for you. Next part. The days that followed felt surreal, like I was walking through a fog I couldn't shake. The house was emptier than ever, but strangely, it also felt lighter. I'd finally closed the chapter with her, packed away the remnants of our life together, and handed over the keys. Truthfully, I didn't expect to feel relief, but I did. A heavy weight had lifted, and I could breathe again, even if my chest still ached. I spent a lot of time reflecting. I thought about all the moments I missed, the signs I ignored, about how love had blinded me, making me believe what I wanted to see instead of what was real. But more than that, I thought about my own strength, how I managed to pull myself out of the wreckage piece by piece. It wasn't easy, it never is. But I learned that resilience is built in the silence after the storm. I looked back at the evidence I kept tucked away, photos, messages, recordings, and I realized something crucial. Betrayal is a scar, not a death sentence. It changes you, yes, and sometimes it leaves you questioning everything. But it also teaches you who you are at your core. I learned that I valued honesty more than anything, and I deserved someone who would give me that in return. No one should settle for less. One afternoon, I sat on my balcony, watching the city move beneath me, feeling the sun warm my skin. The breeze was gentle, carrying the scent of rain, and I finally let myself smile, genuinely. I had reclaimed my peace, and that felt more powerful than any revenge I'd set in motion. I no longer carried the bitterness I'd worn like armor. Instead, I carried a quiet hope that someday I'd love again, more wisely, more carefully. I knew I'd carry the pain of her betrayal for a long time, but I also knew I wouldn't let it define me. I was still standing, and that's what mattered. I had taken control of my story, and I refused to let anyone else write the ending. Looking back, I'd tell anyone in a situation like mine, trust is fragile. It's a gift you should never take for granted. But when it's broken, you have a choice: to let it destroy you or to learn from it. I chose the latter, and every day now feels like a small victory, a step toward healing. So I moved out of the house, started fresh in a new apartment, and threw myself into rebuilding who I was. I learned that sometimes the hardest lessons are the ones that teach you most about your own resilience. That betrayal cuts deep, but it doesn't have to kill your spirit. It can, in fact, make you stronger. And as I sit here writing this, I realize how much I've grown. I still hurt sometimes, but I no longer drown in it. I take each day as it comes, knowing I've already survived the worst. I've faced the darkness and I've come out the other side. The truth is, life moves on. And so will I, with more caution, more awareness, but also with the hope that someday love will find me again, this time with honesty and respect. Because I know now that I deserve nothing less. And that's all there is to say.